anybody out there who doesn't realize this, you need to get your head examined. This is being purposely done to bring and put these people in.
I'm not going to argue with you that
they getting $7,000 a month. Food stamps, vouchers, e-bikes, scooters. They taking jobs away from us.
So for some odd reason, now the border crisis has turned into we're only going to be allowing Venezuelans in. Something just seems a little bit afoot here.
Migrant crisis with President Biden yesterday in a conversation she called very productive.
Okay, meantime, on Staten Island, 10 people were arrested, taken into police custody because they were protesting a new migrant shelter at a former senior living facility on their borough. Briella Tomasetti has more from Midland Beach. I mean, things are starting to get a little disruptive in almost every borough. They don't want them there anymore.
Yeah, and in fact, Rosanna and Bianca, there is a police presence here this morning because those protests last night were so disruptive. Protesters got in front of a bus at one point, blocking it from entering that facility. As a reminder, the city is caring for nearly 60,000 migrants right now. Let's face it, that number is not expected to get smaller anytime soon. Now, Mayor Adams says that he has communicated with the White House about the urgency of the moment, but it's also clear that tensions are rising between the mayor and President Biden. The two did not cross paths yesterday, nor are they expected to today. So now all options are on the table. And yes, one of those options includes a new shelter here on Staten Island. More mayhem on Staten Island during yet another night of intense protests. Police from the NYPD's 122nd Precinct were called to Father Capodanno Boulevard for reports of crowd control issues after demonstrators blocked a city bus thought to be carrying asylum seekers. 10 people were taken into custody. 9 of them were given summonses for disorderly conduct, and the 10th person, a 48-year-old man, is still awaiting potential charges. What provoked these protests? Well, according to SILive.com, a former senior living facility in Midland Beach is the latest migrant shelter to open in the city. Plans to house asylum seekers on Staten Island have drawn fierce pushback from neighbors and lawmakers. Just last month, the borough was at the helm of the city's migrant crisis when St. John Villa Academy, a former Catholic school, was transformed into a 300-bed makeshift shelter. Mayor Adams has slammed the federal government for its lack of help on the issue and says New York City is carrying the weight of a national problem.
Sounds to me like a lot of BS is going on here, but as you guys caught in that very first segment before Leland Vittert would then go on to argue with Mr. Bayo more, don't worry, we'll have that full segment here in a second. It seems to just about anybody who's a rational free thinker here that obviously not everybody is on the same page, meaning that those in Washington, D.C., those are actually leaving the border wide open. Of course, they're wanting to blame Texas for this, but as I talked about in the previous video on this topic, it isn't exactly Texas's fault because obviously the federal government could kind of put their foot down at some point in time. But then again, though, as I have said on several occasions, the best way to red pill somebody on the left is to simply give them what they want. And obviously people in New York are not exactly happy about having more and more migrants being brought in. I mean, hell, they shouted down AOC. Don't worry, I'll leave that video in the description box for you. But we need to ask some questions here. Why is it that for whatever reason now the Biden administration only wants people from Venezuela to be taken care of in this entire situation? When in reality, the best thing you could do is just simply close the border and send everybody back. That right there is really what you should be doing and let them come through the normal way. Of course, YouTube is probably going to find a way to add suitability to this video, meaning that they're probably going to demonetize it, and therefore it's going to become limited. But at this point in time, we're already in, and quite frankly, I really and truly don't care. So what exactly is going on here? So essentially, the city of New York, they have been obviously in communication. They claim to be in communication with the president right now, and he's basically said that he only wants these work visas going out to people from Venezuela. Now, granted, I want to say this really quick. Just people from Venezuela. Just people from Venezuela. Yeah, I would love to see exactly how many people are actually crossing the border and where they're actually from as far as the nation itself. Of course, Eric Adams, in the previous video I talked about, it is said that a lot of the people that are coming over are not just coming over from South America. A lot of these people are coming from countries like, say, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan. People don't really know what the hell is going on here. So you may be asking yourself a question, are they doing Red Dawn through the immigration system? We'll talk about that more towards the end of the video, but let's go ahead and stay on topic here. So obviously, New Yorkers are not feeling very good about this. They don't want these work visas handed out. And of course, we'll talk about that in this video here as well, because there's obviously going to be a bit of a ripple effect. And I think you're going to see this before either the end of this year or definitely sometime next year, maybe even the summer. That's when I think it's actually going to be kicking off. But don't worry, we'll get there. So, why is this a problem? Well, before we answer that question, let me go ahead and show you through the news reports exactly what's going on here. Nice little montage, about 4 minutes long. We'll come back on the other side because obviously Mr. Bayo, he had a lot to say as well, because in Staten Island, they're actually trying to keep people from getting off the buses. And also to go on top of that, it's getting pretty hairy.
Who came before July 31st, so it's not an enticement for more to come after. I think that was an important consideration. But also, it really does have to slow down at the border because the volume keeps growing and growing.
The governor said this will have a big impact in New York because she says about 41% of the people in the shelters today are from Venezuela.
As for New York Mayor Adams, I spoke with him just moments ago about the president's big action tonight and why he didn't include people other than Venezuelans. There are several thousand of them here in New York. They will be able to work immediately.
Right now, this will impact 15,000 out of the 60,000 asylum seekers who are in our care, and we are getting 10,000 a month.
Why did he pick the nearly half a million Venezuelans, and why not include other countries?
I am hoping that this is the start of looking at all of the countries that are coming into New York City and the other municipalities. I don't believe any country, any city should have to carry this national problem. I believe this should be the first step at looking at all these countries and the other Venezuelans, because it doesn't take all the Venezuelans that have arrived here.
A very big development, but again, Mayor Adams says the first step. Meanwhile, the resistance among some New Yorkers about migrants taking up residence here heating up again tonight on Staten Island. Not everyone embracing the sanctuary city concept, and it can get ugly. Here's Stephon Kim.
Summer may be fading into the background, but on Staten Island, it is still scorching hot. Protesters outraged over allegedly assaulted a cop.
What we saw in Staten Island last night, where people are banging and using derogatory terms to identify people based on their ethnicity, that is not who we are as a city.
Mayor Adams calling it an ugly display.
Staten Islanders, we're Americans here.
9 others were arrested for disorderly conduct. Demonstrators blocked a bus carrying 20 migrants to the city's newest migrant shelter. Migrants eventually asked to be taken back to the Roosevelt Hotel.
Well, I think it's very un-New York-like.
And the day after Governor Hochul says she had a brief but productive conversation with President Biden, who was in town for the UN General Assembly. Late tonight, the Biden administration buckling under intense pressure from fellow Democrats, granting temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants already in the country, making it easier.
I spoke to the president earlier this year and shared our concerns. Both the governor was also communicated with him, and that was the last time we spoke with the president.
Governor Hochul, in the meantime, wrote on Twitter or X that she, quote, had a very productive conversation with President Biden tonight regarding some of our specific requests for help with the migrant crisis. Also commended him on his leadership at the UN today.
Seems to me like a bunch of different cross messages are going on here. It seems to me like the city of New York is just trying to get these visas out so that way people can get some jobs. But let me just go ahead and say this right now. That's not going to work, and let me explain the reason why that's not going to work. The other day, Greg Foreman, he responded to a TikTok, Black Conservative Perspective. I'll be playing that TikTok for you guys here in a second because I came around finally, even though I don't have TikTok, I've got it on Twitter. But I'm still going to give credit to the man anyways, where a black lady actually went off. I mean, actually went off on the current DNC chair over the fact that black people have not gotten anything out of this. Now, guys, I've talked about BRT on several occasions, even did a video on it. We'll be doing an updated version of that video here soon. And the thing you have to understand real quick about this immigration thing, and of course these work visas, is that these work visas are going to be going to people in these neighborhoods. Now, the reason why I want to bring up Bayo, and I didn't mention this before, and I said it was getting hairy, is because they're now ordering illegals into nursing homes. We'll get to that here in a second. And of course, you probably heard some of that damn montage. It's okay if I didn't actually mention it right there, because don't worry, we're going to get back around to it anyways. But here's the thing. When you hand out these work visas to people who are coming in, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to take the jobs that, quite frankly, nobody wants to work, the lower end jobs, the lower wage jobs. And of course, when you're giving people these paychecks, but yet you're putting them in nursing homes, you're putting them in shelters, after a while they can actually save that money. They don't really have to spend any money on anything, because obviously all their food and everything is being given to them basically by the city of New York. And this where also includes the state itself. They have these programs up, these kitchens are set up, all kinds of stuff. They're taking advantage of the charity within the city of New York itself. If there is any actual charity, trust me, there probably is. I'm pretty sure there is. And of course, the people who voted for this nonsense are probably the ones who are not giving said charity. They're the ones who are, for the most part, complaining about what it is they voted for. So, which by the way will be an interesting topic this weekend too, because we have another video to make on that because of this video that went viral in Seattle, and we got people asking the question, should we feel bad for anybody who voted for this stuff? Don't worry, we'll talk about that later. The thing is this right here. Now you're putting these people inside nursing homes, and then you're giving them work visas where they're probably going to work the lower end jobs. Now, why is this a problem? Well, most of those lower end jobs, the quote unquote minimum wage jobs, the jobs where people are only getting about maybe 20 hours a week, they got to work two jobs at a time, maybe 3 jobs at a time. Even in New York, very high living costs. And of course, all the inflation, those jobs are typically taken by black people. Think about this real quick. So BRT is becoming 100% true. These people are obviously about to be replaced by Hispanics or quote-unquote Venezuelans, which also makes me wonder if there's another political agenda to go on top of that. Now, let me take you guys back into, let me go just kind of bring you guys back a little bit, okay? 2015, Donald Trump comes down the escalator. He's going to run for president, and the main thing he decided to talk about was immigration. Well, believe it or not, there was another presidential candidate that was actually in agreement with him when it came to a wall. Make sure you guys listen.
That in the U.S. are considered out of political bounds. Things like sharply raising the level of immigration we permit, even up to a level of open borders. About sharply increasing
open borders.
Foreign aid.
Open borders. That's a Koch brothers proposal. The
really?
idea, of course. I mean, that's
of course, Bernie never actually said wall, and of course he said the open border was a right-wing proposal because Bernie's a sad-eyed socialist who's also still a moron and very, very weak and never stuck to his principles and that type of stuff. The fact of the matter is this right here. For the most part, he was actually in agreement with the orange man, whether he just wants to admit to it or not. He wanted borders. He wanted a border up so that way we wouldn't have cheap labor. Well, the cheap labor, the lower-end jobs, typically tends to go to those people of color who live in these big cities. They're about to lose those jobs. So what the hell do you think might happen as a result of this? I want you to ponder on that just for a couple of seconds while I continue to go through this spiel here. So back in 2015, 2016 timeframe, Hillary Clinton, she ran to the left of Bernie Sanders when it came to immigration. She wanted about 500% increase in overall immigration itself. Biden himself, he wanted Hispanics to surge the border. If you guys remember 2018, right before the midterm elections, we had the whole border crisis there too, where a bunch of Democrat politicians, actually it was 2019 that they went down there, but in 2018 they were trying to surge the border again. It looked like a good old-fashioned invasion. So this entire thing is nothing more than a great big giant agenda. However, there is one thing that quite frankly needs to be addressed. It's the state of Texas. Now, a lot of people are blaming Governor Greg Abbott because they keep thinking he's sending the buses up there, when in reality what's really going on is that Biden is straight up taking them in. They could always be redirected back to Texas. As a matter of fact, I'm talking about this from the perspective of somebody who might be living in New York, even though I don't. If you want to blame somebody for this, maybe you should blame Joe Biden. Now, Mr. Bayo, who you saw at the very beginning of the video, he had a very, let's just say he had a very colorful segment with Leland Vittert from News Nation, a man who used to work for Fox News, whose hair even looks kind of fake. I'm going to go ahead and roll the first part of this, and we're going to come back on the other side, and then we're going to talk more about this much more in the video, because obviously there is an agenda.
Look, the border crisis has been going on for a couple of years. I was down there 2 years ago reporting on it. Why now? Why these protests now in New York?
Because this, look, Texas is ground zero for the invasion, okay? But Staten Island is ground zero for the fix, because it is infiltrating the working, residential, middle-class communities where schools of young children, young girls, pre-K to 12, and they're putting in these young adult males, okay, understand that, who are not vetted. This is the key. Forget about everybody saying that we're, anti-immigrant and all of that, which is bull, because we know we're not, okay? You can't bring in millions and millions and millions of young men of military age who have not been vetted or checked for pedophilia, rape, murder, viruses, diseases, and plant them into this working community where children right there, playgrounds right there. There's a school right up the street here. People live right here and right there. This was a senior citizen home. We could use it for our own homeless, for our senior citizens who are out and who don't have anywhere to go. This is by design. This administration, this president, and I realized it, and anybody out there who doesn't realize this, you need to get your head examined. This is being purposely done to bring and put these people in.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Anybody out there who doesn't realize this, you need to get your head examined. This is being purposely done to bring and put these people in.
I'm not going to argue with you that I'm not going to argue with you that the border is purposely open. I mean, we've reported on that extensively over the past couple of years. But I'm thoughtful about how close you are to Ellis Island. Just, I don't know why it's personal to me, because my ancestors, my grandmother came through Ellis Island. And there were people who said the same thing you're saying about my grandmother and great-grandparents that you're saying about these folks. And I'm wondering if there's a reason you feel that it's different now than then.
Listen, I'm not even going to respond to that question, okay? Because what did I just explain to you? We have a system here. Everybody is welcome. I come from immigrants. Everybody in this crowd comes from immigrants. But we came here through a system, and the system is busted really bad. It's really bad. And it starts with our mayor, who welcomed them in because it's a sanctuary city. All these sanctuary city enthusiasts are not so enthusiastic anymore, okay? This is insane. We have a system, and everybody who's crying, where's the humanity? Where's the Christianity? Where's the humanity and Christianity at the border for the little kids that are drowning in a river, crossing a river, or the fentanyl deaths across this country? Where's the Christianity and humanity for that? I'm tired of hearing people saying that we're not humanitarians and Christian. This is bull, and it's going to stop. And Staten Island is the ground zero that is going to make it stop, because we're going to be out in the street every night, peacefully, because that's what Big Brother notices, and that's how things change. So America, get out in the street and do what we're doing. They will change their minds, because they're not used to seeing working people in the street.
He's right. People obviously need to get their heads checked, but there's one thing in particular that I want to say, okay? When they say Texas is ground zero, where were these people at with their vote? Where were they at? Like, did they only care so much about New York City and New York State? I mean, I understand if you live in New York, obviously the only thing you can control is your outcome. But they've been telling you for a while. I mean, maybe what happened is that the people who voted for Biden didn't think he was serious when he said that he was going to be, he wanted more and more people to come over. Maybe they didn't take that serious. Maybe they didn't take Hillary Clinton serious. Oh, it's just something politicians say. It's just something politicians do. I mean, it just makes me wonder where these people were at then. Now you've got illegals all over the place. You got illegals who are about to replace certain people of color in their jobs, and you've also got illegals who are, quite frankly, about to start staying inside nursing homes outside the normal facilities that they get. Fact of the matter is, you get what it is that you vote for. And while I do obviously understand Mr. Bayo's anger, and obviously I agree with him about going through a process, I got to say this right here too. He's not lying. These right here are military-age males. Are they going to be joining the U.S. military? I don't think they will. Are they going to be, I don't know, allowed to basically run roughshod all over the city? I mean, I did a video a while back on the situation in Chicago, and of course this town hall where a bunch of people got upset saying that if the government does not take care of it, we're going to have to take care of it. And of course, this right here may be a sign of things to come as far as street violence, street gangs, of course, wars in the street. This type of stuff is probably going to happen as a result of this. You see, these libs obviously thought that they could bring these people in and that nobody would care, that maybe they would just kind of like just be able to slowly put them in. But of course, there's too many people at the border, so therefore it looks like maybe you're kind of bum rushing the entire issue. Maybe you're actually bum rushing the situation. And now people in the city, they now see that these illegals are getting much, much more benefits, and now they're about to get work visas. It seems like the government's actually taking care of them better than they are their own, which makes you kind of think that maybe some jealousy may set in. I mean, it's one thing with white liberals, and it's one thing with white, with white suburbanites who claim to be liberals, but in reality, they just do the liberal virtue signaling thing. But now they're actually in your neighborhood. Well, what do you think happens when they get inside the poor neighborhoods, and the poor neighborhoods don't get the benefits they've normally gotten? It's going to create, let's just say that the people who live in those areas are more than likely going to feel somewhat abandoned. Well, what do you think happens when they feel abandoned? You see, I have a bad feeling that we're going to have a lot of problems come next year. You're already seeing the dawn of that now. You're already seeing street-level violence. You've already seen violence in 2020. They did all this crap right here in the name of social justice, all this crap here, which, by the way, was just them taking advantage of the lockdown and taking advantage of another riot. More people just jumped in because that's really, truly what riots are. 2 people fight, next thing you know, 4 people fight, next thing you know, a store gets destroyed, next thing you know, a group around these people, they decide to get angry and they decide to join in, and next thing you know, you got crime through the roof. I mean, it truly reminds me of the situation I may have mentioned already, Batman's No Man's Land, where one city completely falls apart. Next thing you know, you got all the other very, very big blue cities of the country suddenly falling into absolute chaos. I originally thought it was going to be something more akin to Death Wish, but obviously, as you guys can see, this is starting to look like a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in the world of DC Comics that has actually came to light here in the United States. The agenda was to bring more and more people over so that way they could in fact vote Democrat. That was the agenda, was to create one-party rule so that way they could throw through a communistic agenda. Of course, they'll tell you it's a socialistic agenda, but let's just go ahead and be honest. Socialism is just a good old-fashioned sugar-coated word for communism. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, what about these Venezuelans, what about these people from South America? Did they not leave socialism? They left socialism coming to the United States thinking that they were leaving socialism, entering into capitalism, but in reality, they're not actually doing this. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of these people are not going to assimilate in American society. They're just going to create their own little society within our society itself. When that right there happens, next thing you know, jealousy becomes an issue. Tensions get much higher. And next thing you know, you've got yourself a potential powder keg, which, by the way, may explode with crime, violence, all kinds of crap, possibly more riots, the good old-fashioned stuff that the Democrats love to create just before elections. Essentially, race wars, because as we all know, race wars only occur 2 to every 4 years. And that right there is what the hell we're looking at in this situation. And the mere fact that now you've decided to give everything to one subset group of illegals. Next thing you know, those who came from Colombia, they're going to want something. Next thing you know, those who come from Mexico, they're going to want something. Those who came from Nicaragua, they're going to want something. After a while, black people, of course, and I mean these black people are eventually going to get to the point to where they're like this old lady here.
Illegal, but only talk to black people about voting. And that's what you're doing up in here today, pandering for votes to all of these students up in here. You're sitting on your hands, literally, and then you're going to be disrespectful and walk off the stage. But you won our vote. Sir, we've been voting for 60 years, and we haven't gotten a damn thing from you, or Joe Biden, or Kamala Harris. We haven't gotten anything. Sir, what? No, because I'm mad as hell, sir. 60 years we've been voting. What have we gotten other than being at the bottom class? And this clown here is going to sit up here and give us this Baptist preacher antic show, and we buy and see, but I hope you're not buying into that bullshit. I really hope you're not buying into it. Because that is disgusting and disrespectful. To come up here and charge you guys for coming in here to see this shit show, and then not only that, you guys being charged again off your tuition. Do you know that? I'm pretty sure you don't. So, with that being said, I seriously hope that you guys don't go to the poll and vote for no more of these fuckers that sit in office and ain't doing a damn thing for us. But the illegals getting $7,000 in DHS. Did you know that? They getting $7,000 a month food stamps. e-bikes, scooters. They taking jobs away from us. Y'all sitting in here in college paying all this high-ass tuition and probably won't even be able to get a damn job when you graduate. Because guess what else? They haven't told y'all. The certification attached to your degrees, you're going to need certifications to go with those degrees. And if you haven't checked into that before you started school, when you go for a job, they're going to tell you that shit when it's over. So now I said my piece. I came to state my point and state my piece, and I've done that. I've done that. No, please not you. Please not.
Well, as you guys can see, somebody's obviously a little bit upset. Obviously, somebody is upset about the fact that they're not getting anything. You're upset that they're not getting their reparations. They're upset that they're not getting the benefits that, quite frankly, they were promised. Benefits that, quite frankly, they were never going to get because, quite frankly, it was just another great big giant grift to get your vote. Which makes me wonder what's going to happen. Well, let me tell you what's going to happen. People are obviously going to get upset. You obviously see that work visas are going to be going out to one group that obviously is going to take the jobs of another group. After a while, hatred commences. Eventually, tension gets a lot worse, and then after a while, it explodes. It becomes a great big giant powder keg. That right there is what we're looking at. That right there is what they've created. Now, there are some out there who are going to say that they obviously did this because they obviously want to be able to send the National Guard in at some point in time, which may be a big part of the agenda. Have the military patrol the cities because, quite frankly, the cities are the areas of the country that politicians typically tend to pander to the most because, obviously, cities control the vast majority of the vote in the country. Of course, thank God the Electoral College is still in place. You obviously can see why that is the case. If the Electoral College was not in place, the popular vote would have destroyed this country a long time ago, and you obviously can see it right now. And that right there is probably where I'm going to leave this video at. I know I mentioned something about updates, but I'm just going to wait till the very, very next video to talk about that. But this right here is what you're going to get. You're going to get absolute chaos. Military-age males who have not been vetted, who are probably going to get into street fights, get into all kinds of crazy stuff with people who, quite frankly, are jealous because the benefits have, in fact, been taken from them and given to somebody else. I mean, it's really weird how it is that black people, especially black people in big cities, voted for this stuff right here, but yet Biden is going out of his way, and Eric Adams, a black mayor, is going out of their way not to help black people out, but to help out Hispanics and those that they're bringing over. I know what you're saying. You talked about reparations in the previous video. But if you watch that previous video, you'll also hear me say that the reparations are going to add to absolutely nothing because the overall check that you're getting is probably going to be very small. And given the fact that there's rampant inflation right now in the country with the cost of living already high enough as it is in the state of New York, especially the city, it's not going to amount to anything. Basically, what you got was a holdover for like a month, just rent. That's really and truly all the hell it's going to add up to. Meanwhile, these people who come over, they get to stay in these shelters. They get to stay inside nursing homes, booting out grandma and granddaddy, who, by the way, is an actual resident of the state of New York, an actual resident of the country, someone who, quite frankly, has lived here their entire life. You're booting them out, and you're replacing them with people who, by the way, they're going to get work visas, go to work, get paychecks. They're going to be allowed to stay in these places for probably months at a time, eating off the good graces of the people of the city of New York, while at the same time also getting fed by the government. Meanwhile, the ladies that you guys saw in that little TikTok there are probably going to be forced to go to the office, the unemployment office, to find out that their unemployment check is either A, been cut or does not add up to anything because their job was given to somebody, quite frankly, I hate to say it, but that phrase from South Park, they took our jobs, is actually kind of accurate. Just figured I'd go ahead and throw that out there. With that there being said, guys, make sure you guys hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Please consider subscribing. Also, leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say. Please hit the like button, of course, for the algorithm. And I'll see you guys later.